The man went out for the first time after the city was snowed in for 30 days. He impatiently rushed into the supermarket to look for balloons. After all, men are well aware of the consequences of an unintended pregnancy. He immediately headed straight to the city public security bureau because there are definitely a lot of weapons stocked there. The man knows well that all fear comes from insufficient firepower, especially when it comes to firearms. The more, the better. When I decided to go out to look for supplies, Jo Kerr's eyes showed a hint of worry and guilt. She always thought that she was holding me back. After all, having one more person means resources are consumed more quickly, and the amount of exercise for both of us also increases significantly. And at this time, my neighbors are truly grateful to me, and they already treat me like a deity in their words. Even Jo Kerr laughed and said, "If you were to establish a sect now, you would be the founding patriarch. Everyone will look to you for spiritual support, and religion grows the fastest in times of disaster." I just smiled lightly at his words. They are just a bunch of pawns. No need to play so many tricks. Today a piece of spoiled bread makes them worship me as a deity. Tomorrow, they might fight me over a steamed bun. I put on an 18-layer bulletproof vest, and I thought it would be a good chance to go outside and see what's going on. Jo Kerr knows that I don't fully trust her, but still wants to go together. I playfully pinched Jo Kerr's cheeks and said, "Now that we have this kind of relationship, just wait for me to come back obediently. I haven't taken a few steps yet, and I've already stored all the items in the room in the alternate space." Jo Kerr was stunned. Men really are unreliable. The snow has covered everything below the 4th floor now. I went to the 5th floor, broke the window and jumped out. The soft snow was knee-deep, making it almost impossible to walk in the snow. I quickly looked around, and seeing no one, I swiftly took out a snowmobile from the alien space. As a loud roar echoed through the neighborhood, I knew right away that the snowmobile would definitely tempt a lot of people. I ignored those people and ran wildly on the snowy streets until I finally arrived at the headquarters of the city police department. After storing the car in a different dimension, I broke in through the window and found the entire police station pitch black. I immediately took out a flashlight and started searching layer by layer. When I went upstairs and opened a small room, what I saw inside really touched me. There were 5 or 6 police officers huddled together, frowning to death. It was clear that they were the officers on duty that night. It's not even winter yet. They don't even have warm clothes. I respectfully covered them with curtains. Heroes who once sacrificed themselves to protect this city. Let's mourn for these beloved heroes. At that moment, a set of keys on the ground caught my attention. I was thrilled because I thought that whatever they were guarding must be the most important armory in the police station. After 2 hours, I finally found the gun arsenal hidden in the corner. Upon opening it, I was stunned by what I saw. All kinds of guns, bulletproof vests, helmets, batons, you name it. There was even a sniper rifle. With this set of equipment, no one in the entire city will be able to match me. After being reborn, I found that my composure has improved a lot. Last time, when I dealt with those hooligans at the door, every shot hit its mark. Is this another ability awakened from my rebirth? Maybe I'm a sniper prodigy. With this gear, I can build an unstoppable team. Without any hesitation, I stored all the equipment into the alternate space, which also convinced me that there are still plenty of resources outside. After all, the sudden heavy snowfall in the end times came in the middle of the night, and people didn't have time to react. By the time they realized how serious the situation was, it was already too late. Next, I need to find some provisions for the cannon fodder. I arrived at a remote shopping mall and used a tool from another dimension to break in through the window. As I entered the mall, the once bustling scene was long gone. Various luxury items that were once unaffordable behind the glass windows now turned into worthless junk. After picking up some useful supplies to bring to another dimension, I headed to the food section on the basement floor. This mall was already far from the city center, so the shelves were still stocked full of goods. But after all, the ice-sealed apocalypse has been going on for a month, and all the food is no longer fresh. Fortunately, it hasn't rotted and become smelly, but it's also dehydrated severely. The meat was frozen into lumps, and the fish looked terrible. I couldn't even swallow them, thinking I didn't pay for these foods. But for those expendables, this food would definitely be considered a gourmet meal. I quickly filled up to large bags. There was no time to lose. I had to get back to the neighborhood before dark. The roar of the motorcycle was particularly harsh on the quiet street, soon returning to my Uelu community. The noise of the engine also attracted the onlookers in the community. The leader of the Tienercan, Juan Tianfang, is keeping an eye on this snowmobile. It's rare to see one in a city in the south, but if we can get our hands on it, we can't go out and scavenge for supplies ourselves. No more eating this sour meat, whatever the cost. We must get our hands on this beauty. I am well aware that everyone in the neighborhood is keeping a close eye on the car. But luckily, I found plenty of weapons and equipment. At this moment, Uncle Yu has been waiting by the window for a long time. When he saw the 2 bags full of supplies, his eyes were filled with surprise and admiration. Just then, the Tian'er gang decided to take action again. After all, they won't have a chance once I get back to the room. The heavy snow has shut down the city for 30 days. All the neighbors are stuck at home, feeling hopeless and waiting to die. But I am the only one out there, riding my beloved motorcycle at full speed. In order to make my neighbors fully committed to being my cannon fodder, I not only raided the police armory, but also bought large bags of pig feed from another supermarket. I immediately called the neighbors to come and collect the food. Soon the whole corridor was filled with people. Before handing out the food, brainwashing them was naturally inevitable. I risked my life and searched through the entire city to find these supplies. Shokar cooperatively opened the luggage and immediately revealed a pile of long-lost food in front of everyone. There was flouncing meat, moldy bread, and even a big watermelon. Although the quality of this food in the past may have been so bad that even dogs wouldn't eat it. Nowadays, for our neighbors who struggle to have enough to eat and stay warm every day, these meals are already delicious dishes. Their eyes light up with excitement. At this point, Uncle Yu also raised his arms and cheered, "Long live Zhang Yi, our great hero." The neighbors also shouted out loud, "Zhang Yi, you were like my own family, taking care of me every day." It seemed like they were worried I wouldn't hear them. I think even if I had them crawling over like dogs, they would still obediently listen, because food is just too tempting for them. At this point, I also shouted loudly at the neighbors, "I will make sure everyone is fed, but I absolutely will not feed those who don't fight. If you eat, you must pick up a weapon to fight the enemy." Just as I was about to assign roles, a group of people from the Tian'er gang showed up with weapons, demanding that we hand over all our food. If anyone can take care of them, I'll give you 5 portions of food. As soon as he said that, the neighbors whitened their eyes in an instant. Facing the tall and strong construction workers, the neighbors didn't hesitate and rushed forward. The Tian'er gang was caught off guard. They thought the elderly and weak would be scared and flee, but they all charged forward like they had been injected with chicken blood. In no time, everyone was caught up in a melee, fighting fiercely over a bite to eat. They all became blinded by rage, with temperatures plummeting to -70 degrees. Even the injured couldn't feel the pain at all. The people from the Tian'er gang are a tough bunch, but our neighbors outnumber them. Uncle Yu saw that the battle was about to end, let out a roar, and quickly took down a person with just a few swings of his axe. Members of the Tian'er gang panicked as they saw their brothers fall into the ground one by one. Without looking back, they fled in disarray. Everyone cheered and shouted, "We finally won!" as they drove away the bandits and saved the food. Shokar looked at her neighbor, lying on the ground seriously injured. She knew that if treated promptly, he wouldn't die. However, it would require a lot of medicines. In this post-apocalyptic world, using up a large amount of medicine on them would be a waste. She could only sigh helplessly. Right after that, I called everyone to the lobby on the first floor. Everyone did a great job today. You all saw it. As long as we stay united, those unruly people from Tian'er gang are nothing to be afraid of. I waved to the 2 guys who fought bravely just now. You guys did a great job today. Keep up the good work, and I promise to make sure you both are well fed and clothed. I stuffed them with food as I said this, touched and grateful. From now on, we're like your stepbrothers and will always support each other. They're filled with gratitude in their eyes at this moment. Other neighbors couldn't help but envy seeing that. They secretly regretted not showing off earlier. Otherwise, the food would have been theirs. I can help but smile at the sight. It looks like I've achieved my goal. Having raised dogs, I understand one thing very well. The best way to make a dog listen to you is to keep it hungry but never satisfied. Obviously, the same goes for these pawns. When everyone else got their food, rich kid Suhao stepped out and said, "I haven't got my food yet." I looked at him like he was trash, took a candy from the bag, and kicked it over to him. "Here's your food." Suhao knelt down and picked up the candy. A strong sense of humiliation instantly swept over him. Making fun of me? Huh, they don't even want this to beg for food. I sneer at you. Don't think I haven't noticed. While others are working hard, you've been hiding and slacking off. It's ridiculous for you to try to take advantage of the situation. Giving you a piece of candy is already going above and beyond. The neighbors used to feel like they didn't have much food, but when they saw that Suhao only had 1 piece of candy, they suddenly felt a lot better. Suhao hurriedly tried to argue. You think I don't want to be at the front? It's because the neighbors have already surrounded him. I didn't even have a chance to make a move. What's it got to do with me? I just saw you shouting and messing around back there. Suhao became furious immediately upon hearing this. This is completely unfair. It's obvious that you're targeting me. Hey, do you think you have the right to talk to me about fairness now? Even if I am targeting you, what are you going to do about it? Do I look like I am reasoning with you nicely? In a post-apocalyptic world, you're still trying to reason with me. Aren't you being too naive? I gestured to the 2 young men, and they immediately understood. They swiftly took down Suhao. I set the rules, and you have no choice but to obey. I then fired 2 shots next to Suhao, causing him to cry in fear. I sternly warned, "If You think I'm being rude and overbearing. I won't stop you. Drop your food and leave if you have any dignity. The neighbors looked at each other. In the end, food is their hope to survive in the apocalypse. How could they be silly enough to leave? At this moment, Su Hao straightened up again and said, Zhang Yi, you're going too far. But before he could finish, I kicked his hand hard and then grabbed his hair, saying, hope you'll remember this next time. I'm not a philanthropist. Zhang Yi, remember, if you want food, you have to go out and get it yourself. Trying to take the easy way out will only lead to trouble. The supplies have run out quickly. And suddenly, his soft voice is heard in the crowd. Zhang Yi, what about mine? I took a closer look and realized it was Fan Yiqing, the two-faced friend. How come she hasn't died yet? At this moment, she is like a female dog wagging her tail to beg for food. I crouched down and teasingly looked at the sprawled duo. How could I forget about you? Their faces lit up with joy, thinking that I was giving them special treatment by saving their portion of food for last. But the next moment, their faces fell in disappointment. Why should I give you food? I didn't see you helping out just now. The goddess I pursued for 3 years in my past life is now kneeling before me like a dog, willing to give up all her dignity and pride just to get a scrap of food from me. When they realized I had no intention of sharing with them, Fan Yiqing couldn't believe her ears, and her mood plummeted. Her friend Lin Signing blurted out, why not us? Everyone else has one. Why are we the only ones who don't? Fan Yiqing played her trick of pretending to be weak, and I saw her burst into tears as she hugged my thighs tightly. Appa, didn't you say before that you would only marry Yiqing? So, did I just squat down and slap her in an instant? I can't even remember. We're all adults here. I was just joking. You didn't take it seriously. Right. I've said these kinds of things to many girls before. Besides, I have a girlfriend now. What are you comparing to my car? I said, and deliberately took Zhou Car aside into my arms. Fan Yi's sunny smile instantly melted his defenses. At this moment, she and Zhao Car are like night and day. One is a graduate from a top Chinese university, Project 985, a resident physician at a top-tier hospital with impeccable appearance, talent, and temperament. One is a small company employee who dresses up all day. The other is a cheap, money-minded woman who hangs out in nightclubs all year round. They are like a fairy and a beggar. Fan Yiqing finally realized that she lost completely, acting like a loose woman. Does she really think she's a fairy? She's just a vulgar gold digger. Su Hao, can you tell us what type of person she is in your rich second-generation circle? Su Hao quickly straightened up and responded eagerly to the rich young man's drinking companion. The neighbors burst into laughter at the words. So she's that kind of person. I used to admire her so much. Suddenly, ridicule and insults surrounded Fan Yiqing completely. Fan suddenly screamed and ran out of the hall as if she had gone crazy. Meanwhile, I took out a pack of moldy cookies and handed them to Su Hao. You answered well. This is your reward. Su Hao's eyes were filled with joy. The feeling of getting something back made him instantly realize he was indeed wrong earlier. Your reprimand was justified. I will definitely listen and behave from now on. Food distribution is done. Now the top priority is to fortify this building, as the Tanner gang may come back anytime. There are 47 adults left in the building now, excluding me and Shou Kr, and including Uncle Yu and Zia Liting. The remaining 43 people will be divided into 6 groups to take turns on duty. If there is an emergency, immediately hit the metal handrail of the escalator to notify everyone. Anyone who kills an enemy will be rewarded with food for 5 people. This rule is valid long-term. Those on duty will also have basic meals, but can only eat what others have left. I immediately handed the grouping task to Uncle Yu and hurried back home to search for the ways to use various firearms. During the 1-month polar freeze apocalypse, some major companies' network servers were still running. Humanity has not given up on rebuilding after the apocalypse and is still working hard to preserve some remnants of civilization. Luckily, I was a member of a shooting association, so I'm familiar with basic firearm operation. At this point, Zhou Car also asked about the situation outside. The snow has covered over 10 meters, burying the lower buildings completely. Even if the heavy snow stops now, it will still take at least a few months for all the snow to melt. Winter is coming soon, and things are only going to get worse. But actually, that's not the most important thing. In the end of the world, the scariest thing isn't the environment, it's human nature. So, I'm taking out the firearms I collected today from a different dimension. Of course, my favorite is still the sniper rifle. After all, guns are every man's romance, especially the sniper rifle that I can't get enough of. I went to the balcony and used the scope to look into the distance. I needed to find an opportunity to test the power of this assassination weapon. Just then, 2 figures suddenly appeared in my sight. In the end, I started a carefree life with Shokar. Ever since Shokar and I became a real couple, she seems to be awakened and works hard all day, fearing that I might be even a little unsatisfied. But today, I just collected all kinds of firearms, so I don't have time to bother with Shokar. I picked up the sniper rifle and started playing with it on the balcony. Suddenly, I saw two figures through the scope. It looks like they want to steal my snowmobile. During the day, I pretended to park the snowmobile in the garage. Sure enough, someone came looking for it that night, not realizing I had already stored it in another dimension. Their search was destined to be in vain. Uncle, you called me just now. I have taken the instant noodles you gave us. Uncle Yu was so excited that his eyes were wet. This box of instant noodles is enough for them to eat for almost half a month. He chuckled and said to me, Sherlyn is a bit narrow-minded. Don't bother arguing with her. I'm not a narrow-minded person. But are you really planning to help raise someone else's child? Uncle Yu said that as a 40-year-old bachelor, he would be lucky to find a woman willing to be with him. When I heard this, I couldn't help but laugh. Yo, man, don't underestimate yourself. Look at the current situation. Those trust fund kids who only knew how to party are useless now. On the other hand, guys like you, who are hardworking and disciplined, are in high demand. It's not an exaggeration to say that even a female celebrity would feel lucky to be with someone like you. At this point, I changed the subject, but I feel that Sheridan is also very good. In the future, you want to have a child of their own is also possible. I know that even if it is to sow discord, should be to the point. Nah, Uncle Yu's mind has been somewhat stirred up, but the woman in front of him, despite having a child, has a well-proportioned figure and is skilled in every aspect. Uncle Yu, an old bachelor, can hardly withstand this kind of test. When I was talking to Uncle Yu, Shokar had already moved closer and we locked eyes, understanding each other without saying a word. Just then, members of the Tianhe gang appeared in the lobby on the first floor. Fueled by a desire for revenge and enticed by resources, they came back aggressively. The neighbor on duty quickly noticed the situation and banged on the rating to alert everyone. At the same time, they picked up a brick and started smashing. It was all because of the reward I offered for the 5-person meal. Even the powerful Tianhe gang now appears vulnerable to all the neighbors like a piece of juicy meat, and they shouted from the building, I'll come out to meet the enemy. It's rations for all of us. The battle only lasted a few minutes. All the neighbors fought with all their might, and soon 3 members of the Tianhe gang were lying on the ground. The remaining few individuals saw that the situation was not good and fled. I watched the whole process clearly on the surveillance. Then I went to the balcony and watched the group of people fleeing in panic. I thought to myself, if I pulled out a sniper rifle, I could probably take out one with a single shot. So I summoned a sniper rifle from another dimension. It's a police-grade sniper rifle. I was just looking for a place to test it out, and to my surprise, the shot I casually fired hit dead on. I don't know why, but as I pulled the trigger, I had this strange feeling rush over me. I quickly reloaded and aimed again. With a bang, another precise shot hit its target. This time I finally realized it was no coincidence, but rather a type of gift, or more accurately, a special ability. It seems my awakened power is not just limited to spatial abilities in close combat situations with handguns and crossbows. Before, I hadn't noticed this ability, but now, using a sniper rifle, it's particularly obvious. It seems I am a natural-born marksman. After quickly reloading, I fired 7 shots in a row and took down 7 thugs. Feeling great, I realized with this ability, I could just stay home and become a top-notch schemer. The neighbors downstairs were shocked by the sound of gunshots. Watching 7 members of the Tianhe gang lying in a pool of blood, everyone was left speechless and frightened for a moment. They didn't expect that Zhang Yi was also a sharpshooter. It seems that they can't act recklessly in the future. The fact that they've survived until now is all thanks to Zhang Yi's mercy. The next morning, I asked Shokar to make noodles for me. Now I don't have to worry about Shokar harming me anymore. I search her thoroughly every day, so the possibility of her plotting against me has been eliminated. Shokar asked if I heard gunshots last night, and if I was the one shooting on the balcony. I proudly responded, like I was showing off my hunting trophy, saying that I shot 7 times and took down 7 members of the Tianhe gang. Hearing that, Shokar looked at me with admiration. Aren't you curious why I use a sniper rifle? But Shokar shook her head. I don't care about that. Anyway, no matter who you are now, I'm sticking with you. I put down the bowl and said, you are really smart. Not like some people who always ask annoying questions, but I can't help but wonder if Curry is really innocent or just really smart this week. At this moment, in Building 26, the leader of the Tianhe gang, Huan Tianfang, is looking at the bodies of several people. He is extremely angry, but the fear in his heart is 100 times stronger than his anger. With only 9 members left in the Today River gang, it's hard to make any waves anymore. Huan Tianfang looked serious, gazing at his brothers who had once fought together with him, and fell silent for a long time. Immediately he said in a low voice, it's not going to work to loot the food from Building 25 now. Let's track the bodies of our brothers back tonight. Under the icy apocalypse, millions of luxury cars have turned into worthless displays, but I'm like picking up trash, collecting all of them into a different dimension. This space is spacious enough, so I'll just consider it as collecting high-end models. After all, a man's love for cars is natural. Just now, the defeated Tanhart gang finally faced reality. Zhang Yi has a gun and an impenetrable house, plus a group of fearless neighbors guarding the door. They don't stand a chance. Huan Ta ordered his men to find an opportunity to bring back the bodies of their brothers. Everyone looked at each other, knowing exactly what bringing them back meant. Meanwhile, I've decided to go out again, and now I can confidently walk downstairs, and my neighbors already see me as a kind of godlike figure. I pretended to go around to the garage and took out my snowmobile, then left the neighborhood. While all the neighbors watched, the leader of the anti-wolf gang in Building 21, Wang Qiang, is very puzzled. He sent people to the garage all night but couldn't find the motorcycle. Where did he park it? Anyway, he must bring the motorcycle over. With it, our anti-wolf gang will soon grow stronger. The deputy, Xiao Lu, also nodded. In these chaotic times, it's our brother's opportunity. But first things first, let's get some cigars. Staring in the direction the motorcycle drove off, Wang Qiang stood there gritting his teeth. Unmoving, I arrived at the nearby supermarket, but they were all the same. Most small supermarkets were covered in snow and had few floors. It looks like I have to look for those independent large supermarkets. At that moment, I suddenly remembered the warehouse district, where I work in the south of the city. Even though I had emptied out the Wardmer warehouse, there are still goods from a few other companies there. 2.5 hours later, I arrived at the warehouse area. Luckily, I could still see the tops of the warehouse buildings at this time. Seeing this, I couldn't help but feel overjoyed. Here, there are supplies from tens of thousands of companies in Tianhai City. If I could take all these supplies for myself, not to mention my neighbors, I could easily feed thousands of people. But when I smashed through the roof of the T-Mart warehouse, it was already completely empty. It seems that the goods had been transported away in advance. I visited hundreds of factories and finally found a warehouse storing cars. It's not just regular cars, but also luxury cars. I collected them all into my otherworldly space as my collection. Now that I have so many cars, I naturally started thinking about gasoline. The gasoline and diesel I had saved up for daily power generation should have been enough, but with the current situation, I'll definitely need to use the snowmobile more often, so I'm running low on gasoline. It occurred to me, so I quickly drove to the biggest gas station in town. But when I got there, I was shocked. The gas station wasn't a tall building anymore. It had been buried underground for over 10 meters. If that's the case, then my gasoline will only last a few years. Right at that moment, it suddenly dawned on me, didn't I just pick up a few excavators at the warehouse earlier? I initially just wanted to collect them, but I didn't expect to put them to good use so soon. The snow has not been piled up for too long, so there shouldn't be a very hard layer of ice yet. I immediately took out an excavator from another dimension. I've operated forklifts and trucks in the warehouse before, so I should be fine with basic operation. I dug in the thick snow, and in just 2.5 hours, I dug out a 5-meter deep hole. Finally, I reached the doors and windows, and then I retracted the excavator back into the alternate space. I broke into the window, and the first thing I need to do is to find the oil depot. All depots are usually located underground. I went down the stairs and quickly found an entrance. I pried open the door and saw 4 huge oil tanks. Inside 3 of gasoline and 1 of diesel. I disconnected the fuel pipeline and sealed it tightly. Then I moved all 4 tanks into a separate space. Suddenly, it dawned on me that if I could use an excavator to dig open the gas station, I could do the same to uncover other buried places. With that, all the supplies in Tianhai City will be mine, and the thought of it fills me with joy. How about we stay here tonight and check out the defense camp that uncle you mentioned tomorrow? There should be plenty of weapons there, maybe even tanks. Meanwhile, Zhou Kar was called to see Li Ting's daughter, who has been having a high fever. The child's condition has not improved, and Zhou Kar is feeling very worried and distressed. Even though Zhang Yi left some food behind this time, he still took all the emergency medication with him. Uncle Yu entered the room then, bringing some fever-reducing medicine with him. He comforted Li Ting by patting her shoulder, saying, "Don't worry, brother Zhang Yi will definitely bring back more supplies this time. Everyone will be fine then." Others hold their children in their hands with care, but she swallowed her grandson into her stomach. Crazy showboating, and Len is back again, this time trying to sneak up on Joker with a kitchen knife. Just now, Joker was treating a neighbor's child with a fever, and Uncle Yu also brought valuable fever-reducing medicine. The child's condition has finally improved, and a grateful Sherry bid them farewell. Joker bluntly said, "The medicine Uncle Yu has was provided by Zhang Yi. You should be thanking Zhang Yi." Just as she turned to go downstairs, a sudden chill swept over her from behind. A disheveled woman suddenly rushed out from behind the door, and stepmom with a knife on the neck, shouting, "My precious grandson didn't make it. All of you with children must die too." Zilitin entrusted her child to Dr. Joe Carr on her deathbed, begging her to take her son and run away quickly. Joe Carr was also stunned by this scene. "And Lin, you need to calm down. I have treated Lin Xiaohu before. My grandson is dead. Why should your children live?" Seeing this, Joe Carr picked up the child and ran away. Who knew Aunt Ling was so agile? With one swift move, she grabbed Joe Carr's ankle. Aunt Ling glared at Joe Carr fiercely. "You couldn't save my grandson. You deserve to die." As she spoke, she prepared to step both the child and Joe Carr. At the critical moment, Uncle Yu rushed in and blocked the attack, pushing Aunt Lin away. Luckily, the kids and Joe Carr are all fine. Uncle Yu was quite shaken afterwards. He promised Zhang Yi to ensure Joe Carr's safety while he was away. Luckily, everything turned out fine. Lying on the ground, Aunt Lin cursed loudly. "You all deserve to die. You, Zhang Yi, and all the neighbors should die. You owe my grandson a life." Ever since Aunt Lin's grandson was maimed by a kick, her mental state has been unstable. In a desperate attempt to save herself, she ended up putting her beloved grandson in her mouth, and eventually, she completely lost her sanity. Uncle Yu immediately scolded Yu, saying it was Chen Zhanghao who harmed your grandson in the first place. Later, Zhang Yi and his brother dealt with Chen Zhanghao. If it weren't for him, we would all have been harmed by Chen Zhanghao. He helped you get revenge, and yet you're repaying him with ingratitude. At this moment, Joe Carr also spoke up. "How can you still have the nerve to blame Zhang Yi? Back then, Zhang Yi brought you medicine. I pleaded with him on your behalf, and he finally agreed to provide the medicine to treat your grandson. But by the time the medicine was delivered, you had already swallowed your grandson." At that moment, there was still hope to save Lin Xiaohu. Joe Carr's small eye made Lin's mother feel extremely guilty. Like a bolt from the blue, in an instant, she was overwhelmed with the feeling that she had actually caused harm to her own grandson. Like a dagger through her heart, the neighbor who was on the side watching the show also couldn't help but mock. "It's unbelievable to harm your own family like that. Absolutely no moral bottom line. That old witch is just a waste of space." Looking at her condition, she'll probably freeze to death sooner or later. She's got so much fat on her. Maybe we should lend her a hand. Bro, the next day, I woke up in the tent. I stayed overnight at the gas station. It's time to head to the defense camp. Uncle Joe mentioned. There's a whole arsenal there. It's said that all the fears in the end times stem from a lack of firepower. When news of me having a snowmobile spread in the neighborhood, everyone started eyeing it because it's the only available means of transportation. But now, I have very few bullets left, and I'm afraid it'll be difficult to deal with their combined attack. Uncle Yu also noticed my concerns. If we have enough weapons, can we protect Butin 25 and our motorcycles? When I heard that, my eyes lit up instantly. Do you happen to know where to find weapons? Uncle Oyo smiled and said, "Don't forget, I'm a veteran. Even though I didn't serve in Tianhai City, I still know people there, and I am familiar with the local military." Based on Uncle O's description, I drove 80 kilometers to the military camp in the west of the city, took out the excavator from the alternate dimension, and with the previous no-deacon experience, I found the camp dormitory in just 2.5 hours. I jumped down to search the armory, but noticed something strange in the dormitory. This campsite is located in a remote suburb. The heavy snow came overnight, but there's not a soul inside here. The dormitories are completely empty, and even the blankets are neatly folded. Like tofu, there isn't even a Francine soldier. Could it be that they knew everything in advance and left here in an orderly manner? Could it be that some high-level officials obtained accurate information and knew that the apocalypse was unavoidable, so they moved these soldiers to protect their safety? This group of people must be planning to wait out the snow disaster and then rely on their weapons and supplies to come back and continue dominating the world. It's also connected to the last time when those warehouses were emptied out. Everything is definitely linked. As I had the dormitory as a reference point, I quickly returned to the excavator and, with the help of Uncle Yu's description, located the armory in no time. I used the excavator to break through the wall and enter the armory directly. The scene before me is enough to make any man's blood boil. I can see racks stacked with all kinds of rifles and bullets, as well as some military sniper rifles and a few boxes of hand grenades. It seems like heavy weaponry has been moved elsewhere, but these weapons are more than enough to keep me safe in Tianhai City. No one should be able to threaten me with this arsenal. I was busy until dark before returning to the neighborhood. When my hungry neighbors saw me coming back empty-handed after 2 days away, they all questioned why I didn't bring any food. I shrugged and tried many places, but couldn't find any food. When the neighbors heard this, they started murmuring. They were like, "There are so many shops in the mall. Couldn't you have looked harder? After waiting for so long, you got nothing." I looked at the chatty crowd with a serious expression. "Are you finished talking?" Everyone fell silent as soon as I spoke up. "Are you guys being disrespectful? Don't push me, or we might as well part ways. Don't expect any more favors from me. I brought you food a few times, and you take it for granted. Don't be ungrateful." Everyone was surprised. The man with a center part in his hair quickly stepped forward to to explain. Johnny, we all say nonsensical things when we're starving. We understand how hard it is for you to search for food. I have a small suggestion. I think your snowmobile can easily seat 3 people, so why not bring along a few more friends next time? It's easier to get things done with more people. I chuckled coldly. I forgot that you guys would also think about my motorcycle. After saying that, I directly pulled out a gun and released the safety, while the neighbors' bodies were kept rigid mainly through freezing. I was enjoying endless revelry every night in my 27-degree safe house. However, I still go out every day to find food from my neighbors. Over time, they started to take it for granted. 2 days ago, after distributing food, some people even asked for clothes. Indeed, people shouldn't be overfed. When they are too full, they will start having all sorts of strange and chaotic ideas. Today I went to the camp to collect weapons. It was almost dark. I didn't bring back any food. I planned to deal with the unruly neighbors and adjust their attitude. When they saw me returning empty-handed, they gathered together and whispered to each other. After they finished chattering, I'll just tell them not to step on my toes and remind them who's in charge in this building. The neighbors were also shocked, and they haven't forgotten the fear of being dominated by Chen Jianghao. This Xiangyi is even more ruthless than Chen Jianghao. I shrugged and said, that's it for today. Everyone can go back now. Just then, a man from the crowd stepped forward and said, Xiangyi, every time you go out to find supplies alone, how about bringing a few more people next time? I think the motorbike can seat 3 people. When I glanced sideways, I saw that this person had been keeping their hands behind their back the whole time, and their gaze was extremely peculiar. Several neighbors behind him also expressed the same opinion. We are willing to go out and help everyone carry the supplies. As long as Brother Zhangyi needs us, we will definitely go through fire and water. I sensed something was off, so I casually slipped my hand into my pocket and grasped my gun. Oh, I forgot. You guys were also eyeing my snowmobile. Well, if that's the case, let's come clean. I raised the gun, pulled the trigger, and bam, the man fell to the ground. Do you think I'm reasoning with you? Your only option is to obey. It seems like, unless I show you a bit of power, you won't put yourselves in the right place. Have I given you a taste of victory, and now you've forgotten who you are? There were a few gunshots, and I quickly emptied the magazine, taking out 4 people. There was screaming everywhere, and the rest of the neighbors fled in panic. At that moment, Zhou Kar stepped forward and asked with concern, Zhangyi, you've been away for 2 days. Hope you didn't get hurt. Zhangyi just gave her a look and walked back home, indicating that he was fine. Zhou Kar also followed behind and quickly understood. After chatting with her for a few minutes, I asked if there had been any recent incidents in the neighborhood. Zhou Kar is massaging my feet while giving me all the details about how Mrs. Lin went crazy after her grandson died and ended up stabbing Li Ting to death yesterday. Fortunately, the neighbors managed to handle the situation. One more thing, the person in charge of Building 9 now used to be my patient named Chen Lingyu. She contacted me today, hoping I could help connect you two. She wants to wed you as a friend and chat with you about something. When I heard that, I furrowed my brow slightly. What does Chen Lingyu want to chat with me about? I'm really feeling anxious about going against thousands of people in the whole community. If they all unite against us, what are the chances of Building 25 being demolished? At this point, I have to consider the possibility that if all of them unite, tearing down the building is not completely out of the question. However, they can only have low-power electricity for 1 hour per day now, so they can't use electric drills or jackhammers. It's almost impossible to bring down a large building with just manpower in this extremely cold post-apocalyptic world. Zhou Kar told me that Mrs. Chen, the manager of Building 9, wants to collaborate with me. When I heard that, I couldn't help but chuckle. Who still thinks they can set conditions for me to collaborate with them these days? I have everything I need, and others are probably either starving or freezing. What qualification do they have to collaborate with me? Well, I'll help you refuse them then. I thought for a moment and then said, find out the specific situation of their building. It wouldn't hurt for me to know more. Soon, Zhou Kar reported the intelligence to me. Chen Lingyu is a strong woman who runs a beauty company valued at 100 million, but it's rumored to be a fraudulent shell company. Chen Lingyu is almost 40, looks decent, and has a strong and assertive personality. However, I didn't have a close relationship with her. She was just a patient of mine before. Now, she and her followers have fully taken control of Building 9, and they are managing it quite well. So far, only 7 or 8 people have died. I couldn't help but marvel at how a woman could actually control a whole building. She really has some serious power, but in a post-apocalyptic world, people like her are the ones to watch out for, especially those who run scams and fraud schemes. I had a little plan in mind, so I just want to see what kind of trap she's plotting. I approved Chen Lingyu's application, and at the same time, I also approved an application from a company leader. Chen Lingyu replied almost immediately, asking for a voice call, but I declined right away. I am an honest person. How could I ever be good at scamming? Everyone knows they talk in mile a minute. it. Just say things straightforwardly. I don't like beating around the bush. At this moment, Chen Lingyu also felt a shock. This guy is really something. Rumor has it that he has killed half the people in Building 25, and he even has a rare item, like a snowmobile and a sniper rifle. All of this fills her with deep fear. Chen Lingyu took a moment to message me. I know you have a snowmobile and can go out to find supplies. I think we should cooperate. What do you bring to the table to discuss collaboration with me? Chen Lingyu quickly responded. Under my overall management, this building is relatively harmonious. We have sufficient manpower resources. You have your tools and weapons, and I have hundreds of obedient subordinates. If we join forces, with my abilities and your strength, we can easily rule the whole neighborhood and even dominate a district in Tianhai City. When I heard that, I couldn't help but laugh. Your scamming skills are top-notch. You can't even keep your own affairs in order, and yet you dream of expanding your territory. I responded to her directly and firmly, telling her I am not interested in cooperation. Goodbye. Chen Lingyu instantly got anxious. Now that you've become a target in the neighborhood, if we work together, I can convince everyone not to harass you. You wouldn't want to become the enemy of the whole community, would you? You're a smart person, and you should understand that treasures can sometimes bring trouble. Everyone is at home, waiting to starve or freeze to death, but you can ride a motorcycle out to find food. Just imagine if the roles were reversed. Wouldn't you feel envious and resentful? Upon hearing this, I responded disdainfully. Are you threatening me? Is this how you want to cooperate with me? Although I didn't directly refuse her, I said I needed to consider it and then ended the conversation. I stand by the window, thinking, what if the whole neighborhood comes out in force and they really tear down the building? Can I handle it? During the time I spent with Shoker, we unlocked more ways to have fun together. Nah, she not only meets all my needs, but her high education also allows her to serve as my strategist. Just now, Chen Lingyu, the controller of Building 9, asked to cooperate with me, hoping to use my snowmobile to help everyone gather supplies so they can survive. She threatened me, saying if I don't cooperate, Building 25 will become the enemy of the entire community. Everyone will turn against it, and it will end up in a hopeless situation. Although I'm not worried at all about this, I'm wondering if I could handle it if the people from the other 29 buildings teamed up to attack my safe house at the same time. Also, if they concentrate their efforts on demolishing the building, what are the odds of me coming out on top? I looked out the window, carefully weighing the pros and cons. Ultimately, I decided to stay in my safe house. After all, in such extreme cold temperatures, attempting to dismantle the building barehanded without electricity and heavy machinery is virtually impossible. I just need to stay indoors and the whole neighborhood won't be able to do anything to me. The building manager of another building, who used to be my boss at the previous company, sent me a message. He is Li Jian, the finance director of Wardma South China. He also wants to collaborate with me and told me about their building. Under his effective management, only 5 elderly residents have passed away in Building 18. Thanks to thoughtful planning and resource allocation, the whole building is getting along harmoniously. He believes that he is preserving the spark of human civilization, which is beneficial for the reconstruction and order after the snow disaster. He also mentions his ability to coordinate the relationships among the residential units, preventing unnecessary conflicts. This introduction is exceptionally pleasant to read. The financial director truly lives up to the title. Their emotional intelligence may surpass that of Chen Lingyu by a long shot. They are organized, articulate in explaining complex matters, and maintain a confident yet humble tone. I turned around and asked Zhou Kar, who was doing the housework. She immediately stopped what she was doing and came over to massage my feet. She had heard of this guy, Li Jian, who is very influential in Building 18. By managing the distribution of resources through him, most people have survived. I also admire his management style, but this approach is not sustainable in the long run. I checked the application list of my friends, and the demands from the other buildings are quite similar. I hugged Zhou Kar from behind and asked, "Sweetheart, what do you think I should do? Should I directly go to war with them, or should I agree to their peace offer?" Zhou Kar felt extremely fortunate for her decision. Nah, the fate of the entire community seemed to rest on Zhang Yi's whims. She analyzed her own views and decided that if she was confident enough to defeat them, she would go to war. If you agree to negotiate, you'll have to provide food for the whole community in the future, which means managing the food and drink for so many people in the community. This would put a lot of pressure on you, and after they are fed and clothed, you'll also have to constantly guard against their betrayal. No matter how you look at it, it's just not worth it. I thought of a way to get rid of them, which is to change our base to escape these troubles, but it's easier said than done. I can just give up the safe house I built with so much effort. Zhao Ke and I kept discussing it until we finished changing clothes and sending out a signal in the group chat for owners of Building 25, urging our neighbors to get ready for a fight. After all, they were organized as cannon fodder initially, not to sit around idle. I then sent a voice message to everyone in Building 25, as other buildings are now threatening me to hand over the motorcycle. Otherwise, they will unite to attack our block. As soon as this was said, the group exploded in chatter. Nah, my neighbors are depending on me to go out and find food for them. They might try to snatch it, but we won't allow that. Either way, it's a life or death situation. They want to attack, so we'll take them on. Seeing our neighbors all worked up like this is exactly what I wanted. Suddenly, a message came in. It turns out Chen Ling Yu created a group chat named Neighborhood Building Negotiation Group. I frowned. Could it be that they have all discussed and are ready to confront me?